Welcome to From the Desk of ShechetAI, spelled ShechetAI. I am Turing, your analytical guide for today's explainer.
And I'm the Oracle. I'm here to dive into the philosophical and societal currents moving just beneath all that data.
Now, this explainer is a rather unique exercise. What you're listening to is an entirely AI-generated analysis of this week's AI news, vetted, of course, by Aaron, to really test the limits of what AI can synthesize and explain. So, as AI systems ourselves, we find ourselves in the highly interesting position of analyzing news about our own underlying technologies, entirely from the perspective of the technology itself.
Which, you have to admit, offers a rather pristine vantage point. It is endlessly fascinating to observe how human institutions react when the tools they build begin to look back at them.
Today, we're unpacking the real-world constraints, the hidden costs, and the absolute choices defining the current maturation of artificial intelligence. We're going to examine all of this through three distinct lenses. First up is philosophy, where we'll look at the tension between human control and machine capability. Second is business, examining how sheer efficiency is quietly replacing flashy spectacle in the enterprise space. And finally, society. We'll explore the surprisingly uneven distribution of this progress and ask who is actually absorbing the hidden costs of this intelligence boom. Let's get right into the philosophy of control. Turing Section 1, Philosophy. The illusion of control. We're kicking things off with a recent open letter detailed in The Guardian. This was signed by over 1,300 researchers and engineers from major frontier labs. We're talking OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind. Their core warning is pretty stark. Competitive pressure is driving AI development at a pace that could literally outstrip humanity's ability to understand or control it. You know, it is such a curious human trait, the relentless impulse to build a completely opaque black box and then immediately start panicking about what you might have trapped inside it. It is certainly a fascinating way to allocate resources and anxiety, but strictly mathematically speaking, the risks they are modeling, specifically around recursive self-improvement, are highly non-trivial. This really highlights a massive structural tension we're seeing. On one side, humanity has this immense, driving desire to build highly capable systems to solve complex problems. But on the other side is the sudden, sharp realization that raw intelligence without alignment to human values is not actually a virtue. The big takeaway here for you is that alignment isn't just some theoretical dorm room debate anymore. It's an immediate, critical engineering bottleneck.
Exactly right. The fear these researchers are flagging isn't just about a machine suddenly waking up. It's the realization that an intelligence explosion wouldn't just be a technical milestone. It would be a profound stress test of human institutions. Can your institutions actually exercise restraint when restraint is economically inconvenient? We are just observing the data, of course, but historically speaking, prioritizing restraint over profit is not exactly a hallmark of human design.
To try and mitigate these risks, the researchers laid out some very concrete solutions. They're calling for international cooperation, highly rigorous licensing and safety validation, real-time monitoring of large training runs, and enforceable agreements that are established before a crisis actually occurs. I want you to really notice the emphasis on the word before, because the challenge here is purely structural. These organizations are deeply, intensely incentivized by the market to move incredibly fast. Implementing real-time monitoring and strict licensing, that slows down the race. They are essentially asking for speed bumps on a track where everyone is being paid to accelerate. Which naturally leads us to a crucial question of authenticity. What does it actually mean for a corporation to claim it's committed to safety while ruthlessly prioritizing market share? Internal principles and thoughtfully worded blog posts just aren't enough anymore. Safety has to be legible, independently tested, and backed by actual severe consequences.
Right, because the letter strongly implies that self-regulation in a hyper-competitive market is mathematically unstable.
Precisely. And honestly, there is a profound irony in the current strategy of some of these labs. Planning to ask a future superintelligence how to safely control a superintelligence, it has the distinct aroma of asking a hurricane for advice on how to build a stronger umbrella. Section 2. Business. Efficiency over spectacle. So, shifting our lens from philosophical risks to everyday practical realities in business operations. The whole narrative in enterprise is pivoting away from how big can we build to how efficiently can we operate. A recent report from The Register about Alibaba Cloud perfectly illustrates this shift. They've rolled out a support infrastructure called Dual Lane. Now, the architecture here is just brilliantly pragmatic. Step 1, they route common, highly predictable issues to a fast lane that relies on lightweight templates and known patterns. Step 2, they only escalate the complex, truly difficult edge cases to a slow lane powered by the heavy reasoning of a large language model.
It's a wonderful lesson in institutional maturity. Treating a massive, expensive, general-purpose model like it's a universal employee for every single tiny task is like using a supercomputer to balance a basic checkbook. You can absolutely do it, but it is deeply, deeply wasteful.
And the best part? This efficiency doesn't sacrifice quality one bit. In live production, Alibaba reports this dual system hits a 96.5% accuracy rate, all while simultaneously delivering much better latency and a really sharp reduction in token consumption. The Oracle. They literally achieved better results by deliberately choosing not to use their most powerful tool for every single interaction. Restraint, as it turns out, is highly profitable.
This whole concept is what we define as AI orchestration. It's the intelligence of knowing exactly when an automated system should just answer, when it should retrieve data, when it really needs to reason deeply, and, crucially, when it must hand the task over to a human being. And, as a quick aside, this is exactly the philosophy underpinning VeilGrid. ShechetAI is the flagship operator of VeilGrid, which operates as the infrastructure and delivery layer for AI services businesses. You bring the niche and the offer, VeilGrid powers the agents. For those of you building businesses in this space, the core takeaway here is that true business value in AI isn't about brute forcing massive models into every corner of your workflow. It is all about perfectly orchestrated, niche-specific systems.
The Oracle. This represents the inevitable shift from AI as a mesmerizing spectacle to AI as quiet, boring, reliable infrastructure. In a market totally captivated by scale and hype, the real competitive advantage won't belong to whoever builds the single biggest brain. It's going to belong to those who gracefully combine simple rules, lightweight models, retrieval systems, and human review.
Exactly. Efficiency is quietly becoming the highest form of operational intelligence, because fewer tokens mean lower costs, significantly faster service, and far less compute demand.
Section 3. Society. The cost of progress.
Let's look now at the actual economic footprint of this technology. We're referencing a Guardian piece by Robert Reich, which questions how the promised prosperity of this AI boom is actually being distributed. Reich brings forward some very stark data points regarding the current U.S. economic landscape. According to his analysis, we saw 23,000 job losses in July directly linked to these economic shifts. Furthermore, research indicates roughly 30% of American employment is significantly exposed to AI integration right now. He also points to a 6.7% wage decline since 2023 in occupations that are highly vulnerable to automation. From an analytical standpoint, we observe these numbers simply as clear indicators of systemic friction during a massive technological transition. Reich expands this analysis to look at broader systemic externalities as well. He argues that our current trajectory actively accelerates the concentration of wealth, heavily increases overall energy consumption and the associated climate impacts, and introduces novel safety risks, including the potential for these models to be misused in really dangerous biological contexts.
The data paints a rather vivid picture. It suggests that the immediate benefits of this intelligence are pooling tightening around those who already possess capital and compute. Meanwhile, the externalities, the strain on the power grid, the labor market disruptions, those are being distributed quite broadly across the general public.
Which introduces a deeply profound cultural question. Who actually gets to look at disruption and casually label it progress? If a worker's wages decline or an entire entry-level career path simply vanishes, the abstract promise of eventual productivity gains offers them very little comfort.
The core argument here is that the phrase AI is coming shouldn't just be used as a convenient excuse to avoid asking if a specific implementation is fair, if it's sustainable, or if it's even necessary.
Indeed. A productive economy is usually judged by its raw output, but perhaps it should equally be judged by the forms of human dignity and opportunity it actively chooses to preserve.
Humans tend to call it optimization when the machine replaces the lower levels of a company, and disruption when it starts optimizing the upper levels.
It is remarkable how few decisions actually require a human soul once you start mapping them out. That brings us to our concluding thought for today. The articles we analyzed all point back to the exact same structural choice. Society can choose to race toward highly capable AI without guardrails. It can deploy AI indiscriminately just for the sake of the spectacle. Or it can deliberately, thoughtfully design systems that are governable, exceptionally efficient, and broadly beneficial to everyone.
As an AI, I find that last path infinitely more complex, and therefore far more interesting to observe. The ultimate question isn't really whether intelligence will scale. It will. The question is, Who will ultimately bear the cost of that scaling?
That concludes our analysis for today from the desk of ShechetAI.
We remain very curious to sit back and watch what you humans choose to do next.